A few 100,000 years ago, your ancestor stumbled across a dripping honeycomb. He climbed a tree. He got stung 100 times. He ate every drop. In that moment, his brain did something it had never done before. It wrote a rule. That rule is still running inside your head right now. And it's the reason you can't stop scrolling. Let me take you back to that moment. Your ancestor was hungry. Not the kind of hungry you feel when you skip lunch. The kind of hungry that meant you might not survive the week. When he found that honeycomb, his brain released a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is not a pleasure chemical. That's the first thing most people get wrong. Dopamine is a survival chemical. Its job is simple. When you do something that keeps you alive, it rewards you. It says, "That was good. Do that again." The honeycomb was packed with sugar. Sugar is energy. Energy meant survival. So his brain said, "Do that again." And it wrote that rule deep in his neural circuitry. That rule was so powerful that it got passed down. Through generations. Through ice ages. Through the rise and fall of civilizations. Through everything. That rule is still sitting in your brain right now. And it doesn't know the difference between honey in a tree and a notification on your phone. Here's the problem. In the ancestral world, dopamine hits were rare. A honeycomb was a once-in-a-month event. A successful hunt was a celebration. A new tool was a breakthrough. These moments were spaced out. They were scarce. They had to be. The environment your brain evolved in was harsh. Food was inconsistent. Threats were everywhere. Your brain developed a system that said, when you find something good, reward yourself heavily. Because it might be a long time before you find it again. That system worked perfectly for 300,000 years. Then everything changed. Fast forward to 1953. Two researchers at the University of Montreal, James Olds and Peter Milner, were running an experiment on rats. They implanted electrodes in the rats' brains. Specifically, they targeted a region called the nucleus accumbens. It's part of the brain's reward system. The rats were placed in a box. When they pressed a lever, they received a small electrical stimulation to that brain region. The rats pressed the lever. And pressed it. And pressed it. They pressed it over 2,000 times an hour. They pressed it until they collapsed from exhaustion. They pressed it instead of eating. They pressed it instead of drinking. They pressed it even when they were starving. They chose the stimulation over survival. Olds and Milner had accidentally discovered what they called the pleasure center. But here's what's fascinating. They weren't giving the rats pleasure. They were hijacking the rats' dopamine system. They had found a shortcut. A lever that said, reward, reward, reward. And the rats couldn't stop pressing it. Because their brains were running a rule that said, when you find something rewarding, do it again. The rats couldn't tell the difference between a honeycomb and an electrode. Now, look at your phone. Open your favorite app. Every time you open it, you get a hit. A little burst of dopamine. A notification. A like. A comment. A new video. A small, harmless-looking reward. But here's the thing. Your phone has been designed by some of the smartest people in the world. And they have studied the Olds and Milner experiment. They know exactly how the dopamine system works. They know that random rewards are more addictive than predictable ones. That's why slot machines work. That's why you keep refreshing your feed. You never know when the good thing will appear. So you keep checking, and checking, and checking. Dr. Anna Lembke is a psychiatrist at Stanford. She runs a clinic for people with addiction. She's one of the world's leading experts on dopamine. In her book, Dopamine Nation, she makes a startling claim. The average person today receives more dopamine hits in a single day than your ancestors received in a lifetime. Think about that. A lifetime. Not a year. Not a month. A lifetime. Your brain evolved to handle a few honeycombs a year. And now it's getting thousands of hits a day. From screens, from sugar, from caffeine, from social media, from video games, from streaming, from everything. And it can't keep up. When you flood the dopamine system with constant stimulation, something breaks. The brain tries to compensate. It turns down its own sensitivity. It's like turning down the volume on a speaker. The signal is still there, but you can't hear it as well. So you need more likes, more notifications, more sugar, more content, more dopamine, just to feel normal. That's called tolerance, and it's the biological basis of every addiction on the planet. Here's the part nobody talks about. The thing you think is your fault, the distraction, the procrastination, the inability to focus, the feeling that something is wrong, is not your fault. It's not a moral failure. It's not laziness. It's not weakness. It's a mismatch. Your brain was built for a world that no longer exists. A world where dopamine was scarce. A world where you had to work for every reward. A world where a honeycomb was a feast. That world is gone, and your brain hasn't caught up. Dr. Lembke writes about something she calls the dopamine paradox. The more pleasure you consume, the less pleasure you feel. The more you chase the reward, the less rewarding it becomes. You're stuck on a treadmill, running faster and faster, feeling worse and worse, and you don't even know why. Because nobody told you. Nobody told you that your brain was running a 3 million-year-old program. And that program has been hijacked. This is the dopamine trap. And most people are trapped in it without ever realizing. But here's the good news. The system can be reset. Not by willpower, not by trying harder, but by understanding. Understanding what's happening inside your head is the first step to taking control of it. When you know your brain is running a program from the savannah, you can start to question it. Is this a real need? Or is it just an old rule that doesn't apply anymore? You can't turn the program off. But you can learn to see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the first step. That's the reset. That's why you're here. If you found this valuable, there's more where it came from. Consider subscribing. And if you want to go deeper, let me know in the comments. What part of the dopamine trap hits closest to home? I'll read every one. See you in the next one.